questions in, and then we can deal with them in a bit of an order, or when we get to that questions point, putting your hand up and we'll do our best. But just to be aware that we only have a short amount of time between each presentation, so we'll manage as many as we can in that point, depending on how many questions we have. And also, if you wanted to get in touch with us afterwards, or respond to anything you've heard today directly with us, we're more than happy to do that. We will have some feedback forms available, which you'll get at the end, and it would really help us if you could also complete those, because it helps us to adapt these things, and learn, make things better for the next time we do it. Okay, so as far as I can see, the record button has been pressed. So this is the webinar for the Draft East Statement of Public Participation. I'm David Hutchinson. I'm a Senior Marine Planner at the MMO. There's a slide, fantastic. So as you can see there, we've got a number of events that are happening over the next week or so. Our consultation period runs from the 15th of January through to the 12th of February. So we really wanted to get in touch with people early and to promote the work that we're doing. Just wanted to say, excellent turnout. We've been blown away actually by the amount of people who have signed up for the event. I mean, I can see 67 online at the moment. We actually had 115 people who've signed up. So obviously there's some people who haven't been able to make it in yet, but I guess they'll join as they do. And looking at the attendee list, a vast range of people from other sectors, from different sectors, people who we know well, who we've seen before. So it's great to see you back. A mix of local people and national stakeholders. So really, really good to get that that broad perspective in terms of what we're going to be doing. And a bunch of new people, which is also great, because people change their roles and they move. So just it's great to bring new people into the marine planning process. Those people who have seen this sort of thing before, been involved in previous marine planning processes, bear with us. There will be some things in there that you've probably heard before around our planning wheel and how we go through the process. But for those people who are new, if you wanted to also follow up with us afterwards, we're more than happy in terms of giving you a bit more into what marine planning is. So down to business. In 2022, we submitted the third 3-year report for the East Marine Plan, and we made a recommendation to the Secretary of State that the East Marine Plan should be replaced. And there we find ourselves in this situation now where we're back into planning in the East Marine area. And so we've developed a draft SPP. The format may look similar to people who've used the SPP with us before, but essentially it's our contract with you. It sets out how and when we'll engage throughout the process. But this time we're calling it the last of our firsts. So this is the first time that we've actually replaced a plan. So we're going to be going through this process of developing a new plan while still implementing the old plan, and we'll continue to work on all of that with you all as the plan's being developed. As I mentioned earlier, the consultation period started, I should say, 15th of January. A lot of you will have received communications on that. It's open. You can go in there and start looking at it now. It's not a lengthy consultation like a draft marine plan, so please do take a chance to look at it. We really rely on your comments and your feedback. Closes on the 12th of February. The team will go through a little bit about how you get involved, and also a little bit about the next steps and what's coming next in the planning process for the East. And then once we've adopted the SPP, that publication, it goes to the Secretary of State, and that publication marks the start of the East Marine planning process, so we can really get into engaging. As I mentioned, we will continue to work with you during the replacement of the plan. Implementation activities on the existing plan will be ongoing, and we'll hone our messaging and how we work with those people who are using the plans to understand the transition between, what will be the new plan and when and the existing plan. Also, we've got coastal planners. We've got Louise and Mark on the call today. You'll hear from both of those today. They are coastal marine planners in the East Marine Plan area. So if you had any comments or questions, or you wanted to talk about the East or any issues or things like that, specifically with an East planner, they're your contacts. You'll get their details further on in the presentation. And also, in terms of, we were aware that the ask on stakeholders at the moment is very high. There's a whole bunch of other things going on, other strategies, other delivery that's going on through government. We'll engage with you when it really matters, and we will involve you at the important points in the marine planning process. I guess from my perspective, the key point is that if you want to talk about SPP, now is the time to do that. Now is the time to get involved through the consultation. You can't do that at other events, whether they're MMO events or not. It's something that, talking directly to us is really important at this stage. The other thing is we've got a bunch of, I mentioned earlier, on the slide there, we've got a whole got 3 events that are happening next week. We're in Great Yarmouth on Tuesday morning, and then we're in Boston in the afternoon, and then off to Bridlington the following day on the 24th. Now you'll get to understand everything about the marine the statement of public participation process through this call. But it's really nice to do face-to-face, to meet people and to take questions directly. So I would encourage people to come along to one of those events. They aren't classed as drop-in events. They will be going through the presentation like this, but we always find time in the margins to talk to people and to maybe do a little bit of networking or find out, what you've been involved in. We're always interested in what's going on in your areas of work. So there's a really good opportunity to meet us face to face if you'd like to come along. And we also look forward to receiving your comments throughout the consultation period. The preferred way for us to receive your comments is actually through the Citizen Space consultation tool. Some of you will be aware of this tool. We've used it many times before. It's a really helpful way, and it helps us with our analysis and dealing with the comments that come in an easy way, really. But that said, we do welcome comments in any format, whether it's talking to us face to face, whether it's sending us a letter or an email. We will deal with everything in the same way, but the consultation is the easiest way for us to be able to deal with those. So we would point you towards that if that's okay. And that's all from me. We will be taking comments, as I mentioned at the beginning, throughout. There are breaks in each of the presentations for you to raise anything that you may have. And we'll field those the best we can. If we don't have time for your comment, don't worry, we'll get back to you. We've got a recording of this, and we'll make sure we follow up. So with that in mind, and we've got a bit to cover, so I'll hand over to the team. So thank you.
Hi and welcome. Yeah, so as previously alluded to, I'm Mark Maguire. I'm one of the 2 planners in the East, and I cover the north part of the East. So we've got a brief outline of what we'll be going over and going through today. So there are 6 marine plan areas, which are covering 11 marine plans The first plan to be adopted was the East Marine Plan in 2014, followed by the South Marine Plan in 2018. Then the Northwest, Northeast, Southwest, and Southeast Marine Plans have all now been adopted, and the material is in the hands of decision makers. The inshore marine plan area runs from the mean high water mark out to the tidal limit, and out to 12 nautical miles, and the offshore marine plan area ranges from 12 nautical miles out to 200 nautical miles, or the territorial limit. The Southeast Marine Plan is the only English marine plan that doesn't have an offshore plan area due to the close boundary between the French marine plan area. Get more into the background now. So based on the findings of the 3-year report of the Marine Management Organisation, it was concluded that there was compelling evidence to suggest that the East Marine Plan area should be replaced, with the Secretary of State agreeing this. So the MMO and DEFRA will work together to develop the process to replace the East Marine Plans, including the consultation with stakeholders at each appropriate stage. The 2023 monitoring report showed that the East Marine had positive effects, but it also identified some limitations and areas for improvement. The adopted inshore and east offshore plans will be replaced with a new East Marine Plan, which will be the first of a second generation of plans for English waters. And in 2023, the Secretary of State for the Environmental, Food, Rural Affairs agreed with the Marine Management Organisation's recommendation to replace the East Inshore and East Offshore marine plans. So currently, the East Marine area includes 2 plans, the East Inshore and the East Offshore. The East Inshore plan area covers 6,000 square kilometres of sea, stretching from the mean high water spring to 12 nautical miles offshore along the coast between Flambeau Head and Felixstowe. And the East Offshore Marine Plan area extends from the outer boundary of the East Inshore area to England's borders with Netherlands, Belgium, and France. This is a total of around 49,000 square kilometres of sea. Any questions? I shall take that as a no and continue on then. So I'm going to go a little bit more over what marine planning actually is and why we need it. So with the marine plan area becoming increasingly busy, there is a need to manage the increasing and competing needs to use marine plan space and resources. We have adopted all the remaining plans in June 2021 and now have a statutory integrated management planning framework to manage and use, protect, and the development of the whole English marine environment. The Marine Plan area aims to guide both developers and decision makers to ensure marine planning and activities happen in a sustainable way, fundamentally delivering change in the marine environment, and marine planning makes sure that the right activities happen in the right place at the right time and in the right way. And in the marine planning place, sustainable development at the centre of all decisions. So, what are the benefits of marine planning? Well, as demand for activities taking place in the marine area is increasing, the seas are getting busy and increasing the stress as we are putting on the marine environment and the marine resources. Marine planning and marine plans have been developed to provide policy guidance for each plan area to help manage the increasing demands of marine space and resources. The aim of the plans is to enable sustainable development of our seas. The plans enable economic growth whilst protecting the environment by providing a stronger understanding of local marine resources and activities. Marine planning also promotes coexistence of activities for multiple things to happen at the same time, potentially in the same place. For example, spatial area of each marine plan consists of the seabed, the water column, and the sea surface. Therefore, you can have multiple activities happening at the same time in different dimensions. Or another example of coexistence, you could have multiple activities happening in the same location, but at different times of the year. The East Marine Plan currently contains the following. The plan itself, which is the Marine Plan policies, a plan area vision and objectives. This is supported by a sustainability appraisal and a habitats regulation assessment. And then the following, the 3-year report, it's been agreed by the Secretary of State that the plan will be replaced. And the statement of public participation is the first step in this. So we're back at the beginning of the wheel, which some of you will have seen before. It follows terrestrial planning, which was established in 1994, and we want to highlight that stakeholder engagement and evidence is at the heart of this process and shall be ongoing through every step. Moreover, and more on what and how we will engage and with stakeholders in marine plan users will be expanded upon later. Monitoring the 5 marine plan areas, surveys, focus groups, analysis of data, write-ups into reports ready to be summarised, and concluded to inform the DEFRA and progress of the different plans. We are continuing to build on evidence projects to fill data gaps and share learning with those in the industry. And also, we've carried out marine plan user training from December 2022 to January 23, working with stakeholders around the coast, with a total of 24 sessions delivered by 17 colleagues to 407 participants from 102 authorities, building awareness of the marine plans and why we need feedback from you to inform the process. And marine plan policy. So it's a basic principle formulated by the MMO and enforced by the MMO as well as other public authorities to direct actions in the marine environment in pursuit of marine plan objectives. Marine plan policies are the means by which the marine plan objectives are achieved and how the overall outcomes of the marine plans are arrived at. The policies apply to new activities and the plans don't apply retrospectively. Marine plan policies need to be applied as a whole rather than just individual policies, allowing for social, economic, and environmental factors to be considered in the decision-making process. It moves decision-making away from sector-specific and more into plan-led management. There are a mixture of marine plan policies that vary from depending on where, when, and how an activity takes place, as well as the strength from more definitive to more guiding, depending on the evidence-based, as well as stakeholder appetite, government policy, and other factors. Are there any questions on this? If not, I shall pass on to the rest of the team.
Amazing. Thank you, Mark. So hi, I'm Louise Pevier, the coastal planner for the south of the region, and I cover from Felixstowe up to Boston. And it's just great to see so many familiar faces and names. So thank you for coming along. So we'll get started with the important information. So to start the process of replacing the Eastern Marine Plans, the MMO are inviting interested stakeholders to have their say in the development of the replacement plan. We are therefore starting this process by going out to consultation on the Statement of Public Participation, the reason you are all here today. As Mark and David have both previously mentioned, this is essentially our contract with stakeholders to ensure that we engage with you throughout the whole process of plan development, as it is essentially our responsibility to ensure that all stakeholders are kept informed. We provide feedback on consultation comments and ensure that all responses are submitted and taken into account. So to inform stakeholders of all the necessary information, we have planned several engagement events like this one today and have prepared material to ensure we spread the message that the consultation is live. As you've probably already seen, we are further communicating via emails, newsletters, social media posts, and attendance at your meetings. These means of engagement will be used throughout the whole of the plan process development, so make sure you're checking our social media and keeping up to date with your local coastal planners and me and Mark. Just something to note, we have also updated the government web pages recently, and these will be continually updated as we move along in the plan making process. To find those latest updates, you can just Google East Marine Plans and click on the top link, which will take you straight to our landing page. So as it's already mentioned, we are holding 3 face-to-face events across the East, located in Great Yarmouth, Boston and Bridlington. These will all be occurring next week. We do really value your feedback and would love for as many of you to attend these in-person sessions as possible, but this online webinar is being recorded, so you can watch it at a later date if you cannot attend those events. To find out more information on when and where the events are being held, you can head to our government web pages by Googling East Marine Plans or by scanning the QR code. So I'll give you a minute to scan the QR code if you would like to do so. Okay, so the important part, how to comment on the Statement of Public Participation. So the consultation is currently live. Our preferred way to respond is by using our online consultation tool, Citizen Space. This will be closing on the 12th of February. To find out more on how to comment, you can head to our web pages, but there is also a link to the consultation on this page and the QR code. So if you take a picture of this slide or you can scan it, it will take you straight through to Citizen Space. So as Citizen Space may be a new tool for some, but some of you may be well rehearsed in it, I'm just going to do a quick run through and explain how you would go about submitting your comments if you needed to and if you are new. So you can navigate to the consultation website by typing into Google DeafRest Citizen Space, and then if you click on the top link, it will take you through to their landing page and it will display a list of all the open consultations. From this list, you will see the consultation on the Statement of Public Participation, which should hopefully be at the top, and then if you click on it, it will take you through to the consultation portal. So the landing page will appear for us at the MMO, and it provides you with all the necessary information, like the in-person events we're holding and the deadline to submit your comments, along with further information with contact details and phone numbers. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of this page, you will see the green box highlighted on the slide. Once you've clicked on the online consultation, it will take you through to the area where you submit your comments. You'll be greeted by the page on the left. This essentially will just provide you with even further information on the consultation. You'll see that on all the pages in the left-hand corner, there is like a progress section at the top, which tells you how far along you are in submitting your response. As with all the upcoming pages, there is also a navigation bar along the bottom, which allows you to move from one page to the next and back to previous pages. Once you click continue, you will then be asked to put in some contact details, just so we know who's submitting comments and we can follow up with you if further information is needed. When navigating through these pages, and there are a total of 6, you will be asked various questions relating to the Statement of Public Participation, essentially asking you, if anything, what we can do better or more of. It's worth noting that at the bottom, you can click to save your progress and come back later. So everything that you do up till then will be saved. So when you return, it will all be there and you won't have to redo it. So in terms of where to find the actual Statement of Public Participation document, it can be found on page 3. There is a box that you will have to expand to open the document. So if you click on the little triangle, this will open it in the same tab. So when it comes to the link, if you right click, open a new tab, you can have the document up whilst you're responding to the consultation. You can then work through by answering the questions we've asked regarding the Statement of Public Participation. Once you've completed all the questions, you'll be presented with a summary of responses, so you can go back and change things if need be. Once you're happy, make sure you click Submit Response, and then they'll be sent through to us. So hopefully that's enough information to get you started. However, please feel free to contact me or Mark if you need any further guidance, and we can help you out along the way. So I'll just ask if there are any questions related to how you use Citizen Space. I'll take that as a no, and I'll pass. Oh, we've got a hand. I think it's from Michael Burton. John, if you wouldn't mind unmuting.
Louise, is it very simple to use? It's literally you just follow the process, you put in your comments, and it kind of takes you through. So we don't, so we're not going to sort of find ourselves get too blocked, and presumably if they're mandatory fields, it will tell us.
Yeah, so essentially it's just a list of questions, and all the mandatory ones will have like an asterisk by it saying this is mandatory, and if you click like continue, it won't let you pass if you haven't sort of put in all the mandatory responses.
That's fine. I thought that was probably the case. You just want to be sure, because obviously, we want to try and use these consultation portals, but I know certainly through experience, a lot of people are still more comfortable by emailing stuff. I know you've given the option of both anyway, so okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Amazing. If there's no more, I'll pass on to Coco. Thank you, guys.
Right. Hello, and thank you all for joining. It's nice to see so many on the call. I've not been introduced so I'll do that myself. So yeah, my name is Coco, and I also work in the marine planning team. I'm based in the beautiful York, and my role is to be involved with the East Marine Plan development. I was previously a marine coastal planner myself, and before Mark, I covered the northern extent of the East, so I'm very well aware of the area. For now, I will take you through the next steps to see what will happen after you submit your comments. So, following the consultation, we will have received hopefully a whole bandwidth of stakeholder and interested parties' comments like yourself. As said previously, we will then also review them and analyze them, your comments appropriately. Following from this, the draft statement of public participation will be amended accordingly. We will then send it through to DEFRA, who will receive our second draft statement of public participation, which will then need to be reviewed again and approved before we receive a final sign-off from our Secretary of State. Once that has been done, the final SPP will be published via our gov.uk web pages, and it will be there for you to review back again. So what is next for the East Marine Plan development? And how can you get further involved? Because I know a lot of you are definitely interested in more than just hearing about the statement of public participation. On this slide here, I have outlined a few of those key stages within the upcoming plan development that might be of your interest. It's a non-exclusive list, and you will find a lot bigger list in the actual statement of public participation draft on the Citizen Space webpage, as Louise explained earlier. Simultaneously to the preparation of the SPP, our colleagues are also working on the sustainability appraisal scoping via a focus group. I just want to highlight here, if you're interested to also get involved in that, please let us know and we will forward your contacts to the colleagues. Once the statement of public participation is adopted, we will move into the issues with supporting evidence stage. This will include a call for evidence, and this will probably happen later this year. Now have a little bit of a time jump, and in spring or summer 2025, we will move towards drafting our policies, our plan, as well as the sustainability appraisal. This is then followed by a formal consultation, approximately in the autumn of 2025. Before then, finally, we will hopefully be adopting the East Marine Plan and its supporting documents in autumn 2026. That being said, I will and want to highlight here that any of these dates and timeframes are subject to change, as there are many dependencies. We will be in touch via our normal routes for any of these steps. However, we do recommend for you to sign up to our newsletters or get in contact with any of our marine planning colleagues, so you won't miss out on any of those steps where you can get involved. If you want a personal contact, as said numerous times now, I want to please find the contact details of Louise and Mark on this page. You can write down the emails, the names, telephone number, as well as scan the QR codes if you want. To reiterate, we have Louise and Mark that are our local colleagues. Louise covers the southern extent and Mark is covering the northern extent. Our general inbox is also linked here below, as well as our gov.uk pages. As explained earlier, if you do not have the link for our East Marine Plan landing page at hand, it is easiest to search for East Marine Plans into the search engine of your choice. And that being said, that's all I have for the next steps for now. I just want to see if there's any questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I have seen there's a question, but this is, I think, related to Citizen Space. So Louise, I'm going to read it out and we'll see if we can respond to that. So the question is from Inger. Is there now a function to download a copy of the answers being submitted via Citizen Space so that those responding have a record of the answers, please?
This is new for me. I haven't done one before. I believe that is, but David, do you want to come in?
Oh, yes, David.
Yeah, I'll come in. So yes, essentially with Citizen Space, once you've completed the consultation and you submit it, you need to put an email address at the end, and your answers will be sent to you by email, so you've got a record of everything that you said.
I hope that's answering the question. Is there anything else for now? If that's not the case, I will hand back to David.
Okay, so we allowed a lot of time for this webinar. Mainly, you may have comments, or you may feel that you haven't had the opportunity yet to to get in there. So if you want to ask questions, we've got plenty of time. I'll just offer again, if anyone has anything, you can put your hand up and we'll do our best to answer anything you may have. Okay, well, it may be that people just, I mean, there's a lot of people on the call. If you do want to get in touch with us directly, we're more than happy to take questions. Oh, there's one there. Sarah, we'll just unmute you and let you in.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, Sarah.
I bet all my team wish they could just mute me like that permanently. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Obviously, this is the first time that we're doing a marine plan for the second time, which is really exciting. But I wondered what came up with the first one that you think needs addressing in this one. What are you hoping is going to be kind of a different outcome through this consultation and then the plan when it comes out? What's the ambition, I suppose, is the question.
Okay, so there's a few things there to kind of unpack. The first thing was we have a whole bunch of indicators that help us to monitor the effect and the effectiveness of our policies. And the changing context of the area, the increasing wind development that we're seeing in the east, and amongst other things, leads to the notion of, well, actually the plan's been in place for 10 years now. We've also been developing our processes and our policy in other plan areas. So if you look at the Southeast Marine Plan and you look at the Northeast Marine Plan, the policies within those plans are very different to what you have in the East. And if we're trying to make marine license applications and adhering with marine plan policy easier, it makes sense to kind of look again at the policies that are in the East. And I'm not saying align them to what we've got, because actually we're going to have a bit of a different process this time. So the scope for marine planning is changing. We've agreed with DEFRA that that marine plan policy development in the future will be much more spatially specific, which means we can get right down into the issues that come up. And, if you look across the plans, and while you try and make plan policy in areas, let's say bordering each of the plan areas, you try and make it easier for people to be able to use policy in those areas. It's also important that you try and strive for something that's a little bit different, because otherwise you would write a national plan. So actually getting into the specificity around how different issues are addressed in different plan areas, then the plans should themselves become very very independent, if you like, in their own right. So it's the ambition to try and move in that direction. The next stage of the process, which Coco kind of set out, is our evidence, or our issues with supporting evidence. And we need to think about that a little bit, because, we got a whole bunch of work that we did in the East like 10, 11, 12 years ago. But then if you're looking at developing policy in a more spatially specific way, we might want to be thinking about, well, what evidence do we need to be able to help us do that? So scope's different, the area's changed a little bit, our planning, the way we plan, our processes, the new documents and our thinking around policy has changed quite a bit. So there's a number of factors that helped us to think, well, now is a really good time to start replacing that East plan.
That's really good to hear, because we want to grow and move forward, don't we? We want Oceans Fit for the future. So like anything that we
Absolutely.
can learn from the other plan areas and anything we can build on is brilliant. Thank you.
We got another question there from Charlotte. Can we unmute Charlotte?
Yes, Charlotte, go ahead.
Right, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just had a question. I don't know whether you can say yet, but can you describe how you propose to go about updating the supporting evidence, and whether the evidence gathering is likely to be more dynamic? Because if I'm correct in saying initially with the East Marine Plans, it was it's been quite a static process in terms of collating the evidence.
Yeah, so we'll be kicking our call for evidence process off in spring. We're looking at ways to improve that. As I mentioned, just the different way that we're going to be collecting data, in terms of more spatially specific evidence to help us with our policy development is something that we really need to consider and look at. Also, we've got a whole bunch of different evidence projects that are going on at the moment. We can kind of provide more information about that. Those linked specifically to the East Marine Plan area. And the other thing that we really need to bear in mind is that the way people want to interact with us is different these days. So, we expected far more take up of our face-to-face events with the statement of public participation, yet the webinar recorded the most that we've ever had before. So that changing way that stakeholders want to interact with us, it's really important that we think about that, and we adjust our methods of communication and engagement to be able to draw what we need and what you need from this process of developing a new plan. So yeah, I will say the first time I was here for the development of the East Marine Plan, the first East Marine Plan, and evidence and issues comes very early in that planning process, and we were a very new team. We were learning as we were going. We were developing marine plan process at the same time as developing the plan. I think now, kind of 10 years on, we've developed marine plans in all of the areas. We've learned lessons as we go, and we always continually change to try and make our processes and our engagement better. So I guess what you're getting now, in terms of this East engagement, is that we've got a whole lot more of understanding around what we're doing and how it should be delivered. So we're keen to work with people more closely, not only in terms of the way that we're planning on taking this forward, but then also to improve it as we go. So yeah, does that help to answer the question? Was there anything specific you had in mind around what didn't work well last time?
No, not specifically, just interested to know, because obviously spring is fairly soon, and it's just quite useful to have an idea, as soon as possible, if you're going to be wanting to draw evidence from people and how that might.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the difference between what we did with the evidence and issues stage to what we did with the last round of marine planning for Northeast, Northwest, Southeast and Southwest was actually that we based it around issues. Obviously issues, marine plans and marine policy is built on issues. And, I think in the East, the first time round, we collected like 5,000 issues, and you need to distill those down into one or two, like per topic area, like policy responses that, are flexible enough to work across a whole marine plan. This time, I imagine we might collect more issues, and actually we're striving to engage more people than those who are typically involved in the process. And in my mind, that's thinking much more about what happens in the terrestrial area and local groups. So you'll see there's a question in the consultation around, are there any groups that, we might be unaware of, because some of the unknown stakeholders will really help us with that issues and with those issues and that evidence. But the distinction between the First East plan and what we did in the later plans is that actually it was an issues gathering stage linked with supporting evidence. And while that means, we have evidence at the center of, the marine planning wheel, and we collect it all of the time. But I think when you start to bring those two things together a little more, and you think about the issue and how the evidence relates to it, it really helps with the development of marine plan policy. And another thing that we did last time around, we used cause and effect modeling. So how do you deal, what is the cause? How do you deal with the cause before the policy? How do you deal with the effect? And how do you deal with the effect after how can the policy deal with those things? So yeah, we've got some new kind of thoughts and practices that we might bring into play. But as I said, we're always looking to improve, and if you can help us with that, it's greatly appreciated. I think we've got another hand, but I can't see who it is.
Yeah, message from Samuel. Samuel, you can unmute your mic and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Kind of echoing Sarah's comments, it's really exciting to kind of reset, and the first time this has been done in the UK waters. So yeah, great to be involved from these early stages as well. We can go forward. It kind of largely been answered, I think, in that, but I'm kind of wondering what the appetite is like for the future of marine plans around the UK. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here and immediately start thinking about new waters, but the East area is already a particularly busy area. We got in quite a sticky situation with offshore wind in particular, now in a state of compensating for the legacies of damage and kind of creating that space for nature. It kind of left us in this where we are now. So it's a great place to kind of start with this and reset. And we're now kind of, 10 years on from that space. But to not repeat those same mistakes elsewhere seems like a really good idea of a lessons learned. And we're starting to see that already with changes in these marine plans. But is there appetite to do this further? Thinking Celtic Seas area, Southwest regions, and other areas of high development in the future?
So the marine planning process is a cycle. I think what you're asking is, are we going to replace all of the plans around the coast? So we've just, I'm not sure how fair everyone is with monitoring of marine plans, but essentially it's a requirement in the Act that we review and monitor our marine plans every 3 years. We've just been through the process of monitoring the first 3-year reports for the Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, and Southwest, and the 6-year report, or the second 3-year report, for the South. Now, obviously, we're at a point where there's a change in scope in terms of the way that we want to develop marine plan policy, and we need to first take understand how this process is going to work. There's a lot of unknowns within it. The idea is, though, that if we're changing a scope for planning per se, then that should be something that follows. But one thing is for certain is that we will again learn lessons from the East process, and that may take us in a direction that's slightly different from other areas. So it's one of those things where it would be our ambition to replace plans as we go. Yes, definitely, because with any progress, you actually find that plans become out of date. And like I mentioned earlier, the changing context of areas is something that we need to address. Now, the point about, and just to clarify in terms of the it's very rare that we have a marine plan in place for 3 years and then we say, well, it's time to replace it, because actually marine plans have a 20-year vision, and it's really important that we give them the chance to kind of gain some traction in the area and understand the effectiveness of the policies. But also it's the timeliness of data and the timeliness of how indicators in terms of the effectiveness of the plans and the policies, how we understand that. And early on in the process of a marine plan's life, if you like, or its life cycle, it's very hard to make those distinctions. So at this stage, it makes sense to understand what is happening in the East, and what this changing scope for marine planning looks like, and then the ambition follows that, you know. So yeah, I mean, really good question. Does that answer it?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Thank you. That's yeah, good to hear. Thank you.
Any more questions? I think there's another hand there. Stuart, I'm going to unmute Stuart.
Okay, Stuart, you can unmute and ask your question.
Great. Thanks all for the overview there. I was just wondering about how some of the broader kind of regional and national spatial planning programs are going to be factored in, such as DEFRA's Marine Spatial Prioritization Program that's in development. I know the DESNER's kind of FSO Strategic Spatial Energy Plan that's also in development, because you're obviously going to be drafting this policy over the time frame that those broader frameworks are being prepared and drafted as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I can answer this question if you want.
Oh, okay. Go on, Claire. Okay.
Essentially, I mean, you know, as well as probably everybody else on the group, that there are a lot of considerations with, you know, what we're aiming to achieve with this particular marine planning process, and we will be, you know, we have our inputs and our process and everything, and it all has to be taken account of. So, you know, we've got considerations including projects and programs, government policy, evolving issues and matters. And what we are aiming to do is achieve a plan that's implementable, monitorable, and fit for purpose for its like 20-year life cycle, as was mentioned earlier on in the presentations. So that forms as you know, it will be part of the context within which we start developing, and the development process, you know, will take us through into 2026. So we are aiming to consider everything, the context within which these plans sit.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
David, we have a question in the chat from Michael Burton. If I read that to you, it's just looking at the 2014 Explore Marine plans, refreshing understanding, it appears quite technical in the way that it's set out. I have questions as to how you envisage the end project. For example, do you anticipate a new Explore Marine plans following the format of the 2014 plan?
Sorry, I think this is the East Marine Plan, not Explore Marine Plan.
East Marine Plan. Oh, I beg your pardon.
No worries.
That's thrown what I was going to say. John, can you just repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Do you anticipate the new East Marine Plan following the format of the 2014 East Marine Plan, the former being quite technical in the way that it's set out?
Yes. Okay, I understand now. Yes. So so there's a drive within government for shorter documents. You know, anyone who's been involved in the marine planning process over the last 10 years, you know, the first East Marine Plan was about 300 pages long, and we moved to a process of sorry, I'm reading comments as they come in. So we moved to a process of a much shorter marine plan with a technical document, and actually that format seems to work quite well. It's really important that we provide the information for people to actually make decisions. So whilst, you know, there is an ambition that, you know, marine plans be shorter, it's fine. We still need to provide the information that's essential for those decisions to be made. So you'll probably you could. I'm not going to tie us in, right? So you could see a format like we have in the northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. But as we are developing more spatially specific policy, it may be that we need to adapt a plan in a way that accounts for, more areas, whether it be inshore policy and offshore policy, for example, related to certain topics. I guess the short answer is we don't know yet, but what we do know is that it's unlikely that the marine plan itself will be a huge 300-page document, which I guess then is different to what we already have for the East Marine Plan.
Thank you, David. There's a question.
The other thing that I did want to say, sorry, linked to that, because actually, John, when you said EMP, so Explore Marine Plans is also our digital tool, which helps applicants, those people trying to understand how to use a marine plan. You can draw polygons on it. It's essentially a GIS-based mapping tool where you can draw, for example, a polygon on a map, and it would provide a list of all of the policies that are relevant to that particular area. We are going through a process at the moment where we're replacing that function, and we're always looking for data and evidence and layers, GIS layers, to kind of update that. So that's where I thought that it was going firstly, the question, but it does link to it because actually it's a very useful digital tool for helping to understand how to use policy in particular areas.
Thanks, David. There's a question from Melanie Parker. Melanie, you can unmute your mic and ask away.
Hi, yeah, thanks very much. You mentioned that there has been some monitoring of the effectiveness and the effects of the EMP policy so far, and I was just wondering if you could give us any insights into what the priorities or what the areas that might be that are a priority for updates and review in this next version.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I can't get into the specifics on that now. When I say I can't, it's just because I can't. There's a huge amount of information that sits behind whatever the monitoring report that went to the Secretary of State and the recommendation. We've probably, the analysis across all of the indicators is about a 300-page document, very technical document identifying the changes and the effectiveness of how policies are actually working. I just can't get into that detail now, just because I don't have it off the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry about that. It is something that we can pick up with. We've got a team of people actually who have been working on monitoring recently, and I'm sure we could pull some information together to share around where those real points are in that process for helping us to enable to make the decision to replace the plan.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, let us know if we can help input. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, David. There's a message in the chat from Jenny Murphy. The question is, you mentioned the plan will be more spatially specific. Do you envisage the next East Marine Plan will include zoning for certain activities?
Well, we won't rule it out. This is so the policy that you see in plans currently usually go along the lines of mitigation hierarchy or whether it's enabling certain activities and all of those sorts of elements of a plan. What we will be doing is looking at a broad range of different ways of enabling decisions to be made. Whether that involves zoning, we'll have to see. The one thing for certain, though, is we will be talking to you throughout in terms of, you know, what the issues are, what the policy responses look to that, and, you know, we'll be looking for your input in terms of how we take that forward. If zoning's appropriate and stakeholders agree, you know, from a local level, a technical level, a delivery partner level, at a government level, then, you know, fine, we could go down that line. But, you know, I guess what we need to do is keep our minds open. This is a new way of delivering. We don't quite know what that looks like yet. There are many different ways of delivering policy, and we'll we'll take it from there. But we'll bring you with us. You know, we'll involve you as we go.
Thank you, David. Another message from Sarah. Diversity and inclusion is an important aspect of public policy these days. How are you planning to reach out beyond the usual suspects for this planned refresh?
Okay, so one of the ideas that so at the moment we're dealing with a couple of different things. One thing is, well, reviewing our governance structures. So thinking about a holistic way of governance. So not just governance like as the traditional way of thinking about it as being like a top-down, you know, department-led governance. There's also governance at a local level, which I'll touch on in a minute. But being in touch more with the very local level is something that we really want to try harder to do this time. So in terms of all of our engagement, we'll be trying to make it a lot more public. This stage of the process is public consultation. It's a statutory process set out in the Act, as is draft plan consultation. So we have a requirement to do it at this stage. But what we'll do through the development of the plans, you know, we don't just say, well, it doesn't make sense to develop a plan without stakeholder input. So at each stage in that planning wheel, which you've seen a couple of times on the slides, we will aim to engage as many people as we can within that sphere of governance, if you like. The other thing that I'd really like to do is look across other government policies. There's huge work at the minute from government. An example would be levelling up. Thinking about levelling up in coastal areas where there are local partnerships or new partnerships or groups of people thinking about different elements of government policy would be really helpful for us to jump onto, because actually, if we can get involved in groups that we're not usually involved with and can drip a little bit of marine planning into it, then that is useful, not just for us in terms of helping to gather issues and to gather and to build our stakeholder knowledge around hard to reach groups, but it also helps the terrestrial element of it. So another part of what we're doing is thinking about marine and terrestrial plan integration. So how do we work more closely with local authorities to think about like-minded policies and how they issues traverse both the marine and terrestrial area and how we can deal with that. So that requires a more local level of engagement. So we'll be looking to try and do that, and that's why there's a question in the consultation around understanding more local groups, because actually we'd like to try and hit some of the unknown unknowns, if you're aware of that kind of phraseology. Does that help to answer it? I guess it was a question written, wasn't it? So
it was on the chat.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we'll hope so. Otherwise, please put another question in.
Sorry, I was just going to say it does. It's interesting that you think of the inclusion in terms of differentiation between national and local, and it sounds like you've got a good plan to reach out, especially the levelling up agenda. You're right, that's what the government's calling it, but that is speaking about, because a lot of the places on the East Coast are very varied in terms of the background of the people who live there and the social issues that are popping up very differently within a very small geography, that the marine plan could really help out with if it was designed well. So Good.
The problem that we find is, well, it's not a problem, but our challenge is that there are lots of local authorities. So Mark and Louise's core role is about engaging with local authorities and other stakeholders, you know, and in the next year, it's really going to be about that marine and terrestrial element. That's going to be our drive in terms of our local engagement. And that's not just for East. We're going to be doing that all over the country. So I guess from our perspective, there's elements of where we found that difficult before, we may come to conversations, and you might find it odd, but we may come to conversations with a more terrestrial focus. So, you know, what are local authorities really keen on discussing at the moment? And that could be things like housing, and it could be things, you know, it could be a whole raft of things, but, you know, being able to discuss how the marine element fits in with, you know, the priorities of local authorities is something that can really help us to engage more people in what the marine issues are, where you just might not have put two and two together in terms of those things. So that's where we feel that we can, there's some added value.
Okay, got a question from Chris Pater. There is a duty on the Marine Plan Authority to keep certain matters under review in plans, such as character. Will the MMO be commissioning work to address this requirement?
Yes, we will. So as I mentioned earlier in, or someone mentioned it, it was either me or one of the team, we mentioned about the evidence studies that we've got going on at the moment. So Chris, you'll be pleased to know that we are in the process of kicking off a new seascape assessment for the East. For those people who might know, the first East Seascape Character Assessment was prepared by Natural England in advance of the marine planning process in the East starting. And we incorporated it into all of the other studies that we did as we moved around the areas in terms of a national character layer. We will be replacing that that study. We've spoken to Natural England and they're happy about that. And we will we'll re-baseline the character of the area. We don't feel like we need to address the visual resource mapping element of Seascape, so that will stay. And we will use the differences in the baseline to help us with some of the monitoring of the indicator for Seascape, i.e. change linked to character. So where we've got little bits of gaps in terms of how we around the indicator for that, so we'll use that. So yes, and we'll be looking. We've contracted. It's just starting, and I imagine those people who are interested will have an opportunity to get involved in terms of a number of different webinars like this to help inform the key characteristics and its development.
Thank you, David. That's all the questions in the chat. No more hands up at the moment.
Okay. I'll just give it a second. Does anyone have anything else? No? Okay. Well, you know, this isn't just the only way to engage. You can drop us a line afterwards. You can put messages in the chat afterwards if you want as well, and we'll respond. So I guess we'll come to the end now. So I'd just like to say thank you. Great turnout. You know, lots of interest in this, and we're really looking forward to working with you. I've got a couple of points of reminder, and the consultation is open. You can go to that now and complete it. It closes on the 12th of February, so if you do want to comment, please make sure you get involved. We've got our face-to-face meetings next week. It would be great to see you, even if just to carry on some of the, you might be interested now hearing some of the questions and the answers afterwards. If you want to follow up with us, please do, pop in. Signing up through Eventbrite would help us to manage numbers also, so that would be really helpful. There's a QR code. I don't know if it's next slide. Might be next slide. Yes, next slide. So we have a QR code for feedback. It would be really helpful to get your feedback. You know, this is the way that we learn and we continue to develop. We adjust things to make it, you know, more suitable or easier for you to engage. If you have any questions, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but do get back to the team. There's myself and Claire. Coco's around also, and you met Louise and Mark today, so do contact any of us. We are available to take your questions, and we will aim to respond as promptly as we can. Claire, you've got your hand up. Did you want to come in before?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that whilst you've got the QR code on the screen, Louise has just dropped a link to the feedback into the chat section of the thing. So if anybody wants to not sign up to that feedback, please do so. Thank you.
Okay. So I think unless anyone's got any last questions, I don't think so. I'll say good day. It's been nice to meet you or see you all again. And we look forward to meeting you hopefully next week if you'd like to come along. And please do feel free to contact us and respond to the consultation. So thank you. Thank you.